My spoiled brother tried to convince me to let him use my mountain chalet for his Airbnb business, claiming, "You won't even notice it's gone." When I refused, he and his wife broke in and rented it out anyway. I called the police, and a few days later, he begged me not to sue him, but I did. I, 52 male, have worked my entire life to have a place where I can breathe. A place that is mine. My mountain chalet is that place. It's nestled in the Colorado mountains, surrounded by trees, and far from the noise of everyday life. It's my retreat. I go there to get away, to reset. My younger brother, Brian, 45 male, has never worked as hard as I have. He has a history of bad decisions and worse follow-through. Growing up, he got bailed out of everything. Our parents would make excuses for him: "He's just figuring things out, he has potential, he needs another chance." Well, Brian took every chance and wasted it. He married Sophia, 43 female, who is just like him. They both believe life should be easy, that money should flow their way without much effort. Over the years, Brian has tried so many business ideas, and all of them have flopped. His latest? Running an Airbnb. And not just any Airbnb, he wanted to rent out my chalet. At first, it was just a conversation. It was a Sunday dinner at our mom's house. Brian and Sophia were weirdly friendly, which was a red flag. Usually, they didn't care much about what I was doing. That night, they hung on to every word. Laughing at my jokes. Asking me how I was. Then, after dessert, Brian leaned forward. "Listen, I have a way for us to make money." I already knew I wasn't going to like it. He smiled, looking smug. "Your mountain place. It's perfect for an Airbnb. You have to let me manage it. People would pay crazy money to stay there." Sophia nodded eagerly. "It's a goldmine. We'll do everything: cleaning, bookings, customer service. You don't have to lift a finger. You'd barely even notice it's gone." I stared at them. "No." Brian laughed. "No. Come on, just think about it." I did. "The answer is no." Sophia scoffed. "Why not?" "You're being selfish. It's my house. I don't want strangers in it." End of discussion. Brian leaned back, shaking his head like I was making a huge mistake. Sophia muttered something under her breath, and the conversation shifted. But I knew Brian. This wasn't over. A few weeks later, I decided to spend a weekend at the chalet. I loaded up my truck, made the drive up the mountain, and turned onto the long driveway, only to see a strange car parked out front. At first, I thought I was imagining things. Maybe a lost tourist. A hiker. Then I saw two people, total strangers, lounging on my front deck with drinks in their hands. A young couple, laughing like they owned the place. I got out of my truck, trying to keep my cool. "Hey. Who are you?" The woman smiled. "Oh. Are you the owner? Brian said we'd be meeting you." My stomach dropped. "Brian?" "Yeah. We booked the place through Airbnb. He said you'd be here to welcome us." I didn't even answer. I walked past them, up the steps, and into my own house. It was worse than I expected. Suitcases in the hallway. A duffel bag in the living room. The smell of food cooking in my kitchen. The worst part? My front door now had a keypad lock instead of the one I installed. Brian had changed my locks. I turned and stormed outside, my heart pounding. I called him. He picked up after a few rings. "Oh, hey. What's up? What's up? Are you out of your mind? You rented out my house." Brian chuckled like I was overreacting. "Relax, man. It's not a big deal." "Not a big deal? You broke in and changed the locks." "Well, technically, I still have a key, so it's not really breaking in. And I didn't think you'd care." "Not care?" I was shaking. "Get up here. Now." "Can't," he said, like this was just a casual thing. "Got another showing for a potential long-term guest. Gotta run." He hung up on me. I turned to the couple. "You need to leave. Now." The man frowned. "But we paid for the whole weekend." I took a deep breath. "I'm sorry, but you've been scammed. This house is not a rental. You need to contact Airbnb and demand a refund. But you cannot stay here." They weren't happy, but they packed up their things. As soon as they drove off, I called the police. When the officers arrived, I showed them my ID, my deed, and explained what happened. They took it very seriously. Illegal rentals happen a lot, but it's rare for someone to break in, change the locks, and act like they own the place. Do you want to press charges? One officer asked. I didn't even hesitate. Yes. Brian and Sophia showed up while the police were still there, looking way too relaxed. Brian strolled up, hands in his pockets. Okay, let's talk this out. One of the officers stepped forward. Sir, are you Brian, last name? Brian raised an eyebrow. Yeah, why? Turn around. Hands behind your back. Brian laughed like it was a joke. Wait, seriously? Next thing he knew, he was in cuffs. Sophia lost it. This is ridiculous. You can't do this. He was just trying to run a business. The officer ignored her. You have the right to remain silent. Brian started struggling. Come on. This is a family thing. He won't actually press charges. I looked him dead in the eye. Watch me. His face drained of color. Wait. No, come on, man. We can work something out. Too late. As the police led him to the car, Sophia turned to me. You just ruined his life. I stared at her. No. He ruined his life. She stormed off, screaming into her phone. Meanwhile, I stood there, watching as my brother, the golden child, the one who always got away with everything, was driven away in the back of a police car. And honestly, it was about time. A few days later, Brian showed up at my house, looking like a mess. His cocky attitude. Gone. Please, man, he begged. Don't take this to court. I'll pay you back. I folded my arms. You don't have that kind of money. I will. Just don't ruin me, okay? I stared at him, remembering every single time I let him off the hook. Every time I gave him a second chance. Every time he made a mess and expected me to clean it up. This time, I wasn't going to. I didn't say anything right away. I just watched Brian, waiting for him to realize that begging wasn't going to fix this. I'll sell my car, he continued, his voice cracking. I'll take out a loan. I'll do whatever you want, man. Just, don't take me to court. I sighed. You still don't get it. Brian blinked. Get what? This isn't just about the money. You broke into my house. You changed my locks. You stole from me. And now you want me to pretend it didn't happen. He ran a hand through his hair, looking around like the right words might magically appear. Come on, man. We're family. I let out a bitter laugh. That never stopped you before. He flinched like I'd slapped him. Before he could say anything else, I opened my door wider. Get off my property. He hesitated. You're really doing this? I didn't answer. After a long, tense moment, he turned and walked away. But I knew this wasn't over. A few nights later, my security cameras picked up movement at the chalet. At first, I thought maybe it was just a deer. But when I checked the footage, my blood ran cold. It was Brian. He was standing on my porch, staring at the locked door. Then, he pulled something out of his pocket, a screwdriver, and started working on the keypad. I clenched my fists. He was breaking in again. I called the police immediately. When they arrived, Brian was still there, his hands hovering over the keypad, cursing under his breath. One of the officers recognized him. You again. Brian froze. I wasn't doing anything. The officer looked at the screwdriver in his hand. Sure you weren't. Another arrest. Another charge. And this time, the judge wasn't as lenient. When my mother found out, she lost it. How could you do this to your own brother? She shouted over the phone. I rubbed my temple. Are you serious? He's the one who, he was just trying to fix things. You should have given him a chance. A chance to do what? Steal from me again. She huffed. He's struggling, and you're making things worse. I felt a bitter laugh rise in my throat. So it's my fault. Not his. Not the fact that he broke into my house twice. He made a mistake. I gritted my teeth. No, Mom. A mistake is forgetting to lock your car. A mistake is burning dinner. Breaking and entering isn't a mistake. It's a crime. She was quiet for a second, then sighed dramatically. I don't know how you can be so cold. I don't know how you can keep defending him. Then she hit me with it. The ultimate guilt trip. If your father were still alive, he'd be ashamed of you. That one stung. I swallowed hard, forcing my voice to stay even. Then it's a good thing he's not here to see what Brian has become. Silence. Then, a dial tone. She had hung up on me. I thought that was the worst of it. I was wrong. A few days later, I got a cease and desist letter. From Brian. I almost laughed when I read it. He was accusing me of defamation, saying that my false accusations had hurt his reputation and caused him financial distress. The irony? He sent this letter while he was still out on bail. I took it straight to my lawyer. She skimmed through it, then snorted. This is ridiculous. He has no case. I know, I muttered. But that's not the point. He's trying to scare me into dropping the charges. She leaned back in her chair, thoughtful. What do you want to do? I exhaled. I want to fight. She nodded. Then let's fight. And just like that, the lawsuit became bigger than I ever expected. A week later, my lawyer called me. You're going to want to hear this, she said, sounding almost amused. What is it? Well, Brian didn't just rent out your chalet illegally. He's been running several scams. My stomach tightened. What do you mean? She clicked her tongue. Turns out, he's been listing properties on Airbnb that he doesn't own. He takes deposits, then ghosts the renters. We have proof. My mouth went dry. How? Because one of his customers just came forward. A woman in California paid him thousands to rent a beach house for a family reunion. And she showed up with her family, only to find out that the house belonged to an actual homeowner who had no idea what was going on. She filed a police report. My head spun. So he's in even deeper trouble. Oh, way deeper. I ran a hand through my hair. And Sophia? Was she involved? She sighed. Hard to say. But given that they share a bank account, she had to know something. That was when something clicked in my mind. Sophia. She had always been the brains behind Brian's schemes. He was impulsive, but she was the one who handled the details. And if she saw Brian going down, she wouldn't go down with him. I suddenly had a feeling that she was about to make a move. And I needed to be ready. I couldn't shake the feeling that Sophia was planning something. She had been too quiet after Brian's second arrest. Normally, she'd be posting dramatic Facebook rants or calling me to scream about family loyalty. But this time, silence. And silence from someone like Sophia was dangerous. Then, 2 days later, my lawyer called again. You're not going to believe this. What now? She let out a short laugh. Sophia just filed for divorce. I froze. What? She's leaving Brian. And that's not all, she's also testifying against him. My breath caught. Sophia. The woman who had always defended Brian. The one who had helped him scheme and lie. The one who had stood by him for over a decade, was suddenly throwing him under the bus. What's her angle? I asked, suspicious. She's claiming she had no idea about the scams. I scoffed. That's a lie. Oh, absolutely, my lawyer agreed. But she's playing the victim. She says Brian handled all the business, and she was just a supportive wife. I clenched my jaw. So she's making herself look innocent while he takes the fall. Exactly. I exhaled sharply. Does Brian know? Not yet. But he will soon. It didn't take long. That night, my phone rang. It was Brian. I let it go to voicemail. Then he called again. And again. Finally, I picked up. What did you do? He screamed. I blinked. What are you talking about? Sophia left me. She's saying I did everything. She's testifying against me. This is your fault. I leaned back in my chair, keeping my voice calm. How is it my fault? You turned her against me. You set me up. I know you did. I rolled my eyes. Brian, Sophia didn't need me to set you up. You did this to yourself. He was breathing hard, his voice shaking with rage. You don't understand. She's taking everything. She's moving out, she's taking our money. I cut him off. Your money. Or the money you scammed from people. Silence. Then, in a much smaller voice, he whispered, she's testifying, man. They're going to destroy me. I sighed. Yeah, Brian. They are. The moment my mother found out about Sophia testifying, she called me. "This is because of you," she said, her voice cold. I pinched the bridge of my nose. "Mom, Brian is a criminal." She scoffed. "He's your brother. You should be protecting him, not tearing him down." I let out a bitter laugh. Protecting him? From what? Consequences? She didn't answer. Then she played her final card. "I want you to drop the lawsuit." I felt my whole body tense. "Excuse me. Brian is losing everything," she said. "His wife, his home, his future. Haven't you punished him enough?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Punished him? He broke into my house, twice. He scammed who knows how many people. And you still want me to protect him? "He's still my son," she said, her voice trembling. "And I will not let you be the one who ruins his life." I took a slow, deep breath. Then I said the words I had been holding back for years. "He ruined his own life, Mom. And if you can't see that, then I don't know what else to say to you." I hung up. And for the first time, I felt free. A week before the trial, there was a knock at my door. I checked the peephole. It was Sophia. I considered slamming the door in her face, but curiosity got the best of me. I opened it. She looked different. Her usual expensive makeup was gone. Her designer clothes replaced with a plain sweater and jeans. "Can we talk?" she asked. I crossed my arms. "Why would I want to talk to you?" She hesitated. "Because I can help you." I narrowed my eyes. "How?" She took a shaky breath. "Brian has a backup plan. A way to get out of this. And you need to know what it is." My stomach dropped. Of course he did. And if Sophia was here warning me, that meant it was something big. Sophia stood on my porch, looking nervous. The woman who had always been so confident, so sure of herself, now hesitated like she wasn't sure she should be here. I folded my arms. "Brian has a backup plan." "What is it?" She swallowed hard. "He's going to run." I stared at her. "Run?" She nodded. "He's been transferring money to a hidden account. Not a lot at once, just small amounts over time. He's planning to leave the country before the trial." I exhaled, rubbing my temple. "Of course he is. He already has a fake passport," she continued. "And I think he's planning to leave by the end of the week." I shook my head. "And now you care?" She winced. "Look, I know I haven't been innocent in all this. But I didn't know how deep he was into it. And now, if he disappears, I'll be the one left taking the fall." There it was. She wasn't here out of guilt. She was here because she was scared. I let out a bitter laugh. "So you want me to stop him?" She hesitated. "I don't care what happens to him. I just don't want him taking me down with him." I looked at her, trying to decide if she was worth believing. But deep down, I already knew she was telling the truth. Brian wasn't the type to stand and face the music. He'd rather run, let everyone else deal with the mess, and start fresh somewhere else. Not this time. I grabbed my phone and dialed my lawyer. "We need to notify the court," I said. "Brian is planning to flee." I didn't hear from Brian for a few days after that. Then, just when I thought he had disappeared, my lawyer called. They picked him up at the airport. Apparently, Brian had packed up his things, taken what was left of his stolen money, and tried to board a flight to Mexico. He didn't even make it through security before the authorities intercepted him. And now, he was facing even more charges. The day before the trial, I got another call, this time from my mother. She was crying. "This is too much," she sobbed. "They denied his bail. He's not coming home. What have you done?" I sighed, gripping the phone. "I didn't do anything, Mom. He did this to himself." She sniffled. "He wouldn't have done this if you hadn't turned against him." There it was. I closed my eyes. I didn't turn against him. I finally stopped enabling him. Maybe if you had done that sooner, he wouldn't be in this situation. Her breath caught. "How dare you?" I cut her off. "I can't do this anymore, Mom. If you want to keep making excuses for him, go ahead. But I'm done." And I hung up. For the first time in my life, I felt done. Done being the responsible one while Brian did whatever he wanted. Done watching him hurt people and expecting to get away with it. Done letting my family guilt me into protecting him. It was over. Brian sat across from me in the courtroom, looking smaller than I had ever seen him. He wasn't smug anymore. He wasn't laughing. He was just tired. The prosecutor laid out the evidence, how he had illegally rented out my house, how he had scammed multiple people, how he had tried to run. Every lie, every excuse, every mistake was dragged into the light. When it was his turn to speak, he barely looked up. I messed up, he admitted. I made some bad choices. But I never meant to hurt anyone. I clenched my jaw. I wanted to believe that. But intentions didn't erase the damage. The judge didn't buy it either. Brian was sentenced to 3 years in prison, plus restitution to the victims. Sophia, with her last-minute cooperation, got away with a plea deal, probation and a fine. She disappeared soon after, probably trying to rebuild her life somewhere else. And my mother? She never forgave me. I went back to my chalet a few weeks after the trial. For the first time in a long time, it felt safe again. I stood on the deck, looking out over the mountains, feeling the silence settle over me. I had won. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like loss. I had lost my brother, not that he had ever really been there for me. I had lost my mother, not that she had ever truly seen me. And I had lost any hope that our family could ever be whole. But I had gained something too. Boundaries. Peace. Freedom. And that was enough. As I sipped my coffee, letting the cold mountain air fill my lungs, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't looking back.